Hi guys, Canadians being doused in a soup of glyphosate and Roundup and Vision Max, not just because Ottawa approves all kinds of things, but there are also issues related to the provincial governments, such as we know in New Brunswick, when the chief medical officer wanted to check effects of glyphosate being sprayed over forest and she got sacked, summarily sacked. Here in BC, this is also an issue where the local Ministry of Forests does approve spraying of glyphosate through a different packaging. One of them name is Vision Max, being sprayed on our forest by mostly logging corporations, and this practice is allowed by the ministry. And while we are still exploring what the law says, what are the requirements of governments to pass such, approve such practices, and what safety details they are supposed to see, we have already come to learn that Health Canada in Ottawa is supposed to see safety tests done on glyphosate, for example, before they approved it, although they are extremely shy of disclosing what they see, and we have reason to believe that those tests are as good as humbug, or if they were done properly and they are investigated properly, they should not have been approved in agriculture, and those chemicals should not be in our food system at all, not just what we eat, but what's left in the soil, what's left in the farmlands, and so on. But apart from that, this chemical is also getting into our forest and probably decimating our wildlife at different levels, and the runoffs are also getting to the water and all that. So, who checked if glyphosate is safe or not safe for the wildlife, for the flora and fauna, and for the environment in our forest systems? It's the provincial government, and they have been extremely quiet. I have written to some ministers, BC ministers, provincial ministers in British Columbia. I never got any response. This is one typical habit of our provincial government ministers. One thing they are very good at is not reply to your questions. Now here is a Freedom of Information Act application I made in November. It was accepted by the British Columbia government, and they never responded on it. Here is what it says: requesting a copy of reports and raw data on direct safety tests done to prove that Vision Max herbicide with glyphosate as its active ingredient is not harmful to wildlife, which the Ministry of Forests, Land and Natural Resources may have studied before approving its use by logging firms over BC forest. By direct safety tests, I mean tests conducted on target animals either in a lab or in the wild, by exposing them to various doses of this herbicide over a period of time and then observing the animal's physical health, blood chemistry and other functions, and comparing the same with similar animals that were not exposed to the herbicide. If the ministry has seen more than one such direct safety test reports with the data, then I request a copy of all of them. If the ministry has never seen report and data on any direct test, but has approved the product based on third-party assessment report, then requesting a copy of such reports. If the ministry has not cited either direct safety test report or third-party assessment, then requesting a clear statement mentioning that. Now the question I have in my mind is, apart from pushing the Ottawa government for this or that, I also need to get after the provincial government, which is expressively good at keeping silent and ignoring citizens' talks, and write them another letter, probably mentioning what wildlife scientists are saying, our concern that the wildlife is affected, our request to the government to show us statistics and data of their population and whether their health and so on, not just the moose and the deer, which I expect are also suffering, but even going down to frogs and tadpoles and insects and bees and everything. Who is keeping track of this? And we have a right to ask, because we are literally killing everything around us. just to help Monsanto and its ilk to make a few bucks. And why I should be writing all this? It's not because I expect the ministers in British Columbia government to suddenly wake up and become responsive and fall over each other to respond to my question. No, they won't do that. But the purpose of all this is to perhaps influence a few more citizens and few more residents of BC to consider taking some action themselves by asking hard questions, getting into activism, because ultimately what I believe at least is that nothing is going to change. No politicians will get off their hindsight and do anything unless they feel their seat is in danger and the people are about to boot their sorry asses into the ocean. This is why I'm doing it. I hope others will try to find likewise getting engaged on something and do something so that the politicians understand that the pressure is not just coming from a handful of rabble rousers, but by an ever increasing number of the general population who are really getting mad. That is the reason why I'm doing all this. I know that scientists can speak the truth, but it doesn't matter. I know that politicians will pretend to be interested, but it doesn't matter. Nothing will change unless a huge number of Canadians start applying collective pressure on the politicians, which effectively tells the politicians to get off their ass and do something, or they are going to be booted. That, I believe, is the only medicine that works in a functioning democracy. So back to the starting point on what to do about the British Columbia provincial ministers. And what can I do that will encourage other British Columbians to also do something on their own and apply pressure on the local government? Let the government know that Tony Mitra is not the only one standing at the roadside and screaming at the passing clouds like a madman.